Hey there everyone, I'm Patrick Ferguson with Skull Splitter Dice with another 5e guide here today for you. And we're going to be talking about the Vikings turned gentle giants, the Firbolg. Firbolgs have technically been kicking around for quite a while, since the second edition in fact, but they've gone through some drastic changes, to say the least. They started out as a race of essentially big Vikings or Celts. From there they progressed into a Nordic hunting tribe of giants, and from there they progressed into the 5th edition as a giant race that guards the forest sort of deal. Let's go over everything you need to know in order to make your own Firbolg character, but before we do that, be sure to like and subscribe so that you can get more D&D tips like the ones in this video. Let's start this video off with some Firbolg culture. Firbolg mythology comes from ancient Ireland, in which they were the 4th inhabitants of the island nation. They weren't exactly described as giants, or even magical really, just humans that were badass enough to overthrow their oppressors. We really don't know a whole lot about them, but for some reason D&D in its early days decided to translate them into Celtic giant warriors, even though one of the only descriptions we have about them describes them specifically as being short. 5e throws out a lot of the pre-established lore from earlier editions, and as a result, we are left with a particularly small chunk of information about them. The current lore presents them as a strange mix between Fae and giant influences. Firbolgs are protectors of the forest, they're tribal isolationists who care only about the well-being of nature, and they have an incredibly strong, let's say, druidic bent. Quite frankly, if you describe Firbolg culture, you're also describing druidic culture. We really only know that they live in small woodland communities and that they carefully protect their homes from loggers, trappers, and hunters by using magic to either scare them away or fight them away. We know they live in harmony with nature, and that's about it. Firbolgs are kind of a rarity among D&D 5 races in that they're a creative blank slate. Aside from big and nature-loving, there's not a whole lot else that you can base the design of your character off of, so you're free to do whatever you want in that regard. On one hand, this is a lot of work, but on the other hand, you can design your character however you want. This creative freedom extends into their appearance as well, in which you have a lot of room to work with. Unlike elves and dwarves who have an established appearance and can be shown to have a wide variety of diversity, the Firbolg don't have that, and aside from this one image in Volos, there's not a lot of official material to work with. That said, we are kind of living through a strange Firbolg renaissance of sorts thanks to the show Critical Role. There's a very popular character named Pumat Sol on the show that has definitely added to the community's deeds and filling in the gaps that were at one point left unfilled by the official guides and rules. Matthew Mercer briefly described them as having a bovine nose, and this has sort of snowballed into the conception that Firbolg equals cow people. While not technically accurate, more and more people have been adding bovine features to their Firbolg characters, and I expect this trend will continue, and to be honest, I support it because it's an incredibly unique idea. But in general, beyond giant, Fae-influenced, and nature-loving, you can kind of do whatever you want. If you want the spoon-shaped ears that cows have, or elf-shaped ears, go for it. If you want fur or no fur, go for it. Tail, no tail, go for it. You can do whatever you want, like I said, and I kind of just enjoy that their appearance is kind of in the community's court as opposed to Wizards of the Coast. I kind of think D&D is often at its best when it's that way. Strangely enough, one of the few areas where their lore is really nailed down is the naming system. They don't have them. They don't believe in labeling each other with names. They instead choose to know each other by their deeds and accomplishments, and this is pretty admirable. You won't have a name per se, unless you really want that to be a part of your character's background. Instead, you should have a nickname that you kind of go by and that everyone else will know you by. Or if you're feeling really brave, you can just show up to the session and let the party members name you. Although you know your group better than me, this might be a good idea, or it might be tragic. Again, you know better than me. Let's go over the Firbolg's traits, starting with their ability score increase. They get a +2 to intelligence and a +1 to strength. This is kind of a typecast, but it's pretty good for the right build. As for their age, they have an incredibly long lifespan thanks to their Fae influence. They reach adulthood around the age of 30, and they can live anywhere up to 500 years of age. This allows them to have been present in ancient events, or perhaps to have been an old and wise character that can comment on certain things that happened way before the time of the characters in the adventurer group. As for alignment, they are caretakers of the forest, after all, so neutral good is probably where you'll lean. However, if you want to play a Firbolg that's outcast from their society, or perhaps doesn't love nature, you could play an evil one as well, and that would be pretty interesting. As for your size, you are between 7 and 8 feet tall and between 240 and 300 pounds. This is not that exciting considering that you are sized as medium. And as for your speed, you have a base walking speed of 30. This isn't exciting either, but what is exciting is your Firbolg magic. With this trait, you can use Disguise Self or Detect Magic, using Wisdom as your spellcasting ability for both of them. Once you cast either spell, you can't cast it again until a short or long rest. When you use this version of Disguise Self, you're able to make yourself look like you're 3 feet shorter than you actually are, making it much easier for you to blend in with humans and elves. Next up is Hidden Step, and this is a strange one to see on a big fella. As a bonus action, you're able to turn invisible until the start of your next turn, or until you make an attack roll, make damage, or you have to make a saving throw. Once you use this trait, you can't use it again until you have a short or long rest. Surprise, surprise. But let me just warn you up front, this is not quite as useful as you would think. You have to recharge it every so often, but it could get you out of a pinch or two. With Powerful Build, you count as one size larger whenever you're determining your carrying capacity, so whenever you're dragging, pushing, or lifting something, this would come into effect. This is more or less 5e's way of apologizing for not actually making your character a large size character. Next up is Speech of Beast and Leaf, and let me tell you, this is deceptively useful. You have the ability to communicate in a limited capacity with animals and plants. They can understand the meaning of your words, but you don't have a way of understanding them. This can be exceptionally useful considering that you have advantage on all charisma checks made to influence them. Just picture yourself playing diplomat with a giant bear or perhaps a giant Venus flytrap. These are all things that you can avoid with this trait. When it comes to languages, you can speak, read, and write in Common, Elvish, and Giant. None of these are particularly exciting at first, but I can tell you from experience that you're going to want someone in your group that can talk to the giants if and when they show up. Let's end this video with some Firbolg builds. You shouldn't feel compelled to play one way or the other, but I think these are some good starting points. Regardless, you definitely will be able to make your character work no matter how you make it. 5e is kind of great in its flexibility that way. A good starting point build would be the Gentle Natured Giant. Druids just work well together with Firbolgs. Their lore is twisted up in one another, and they were designed with the other in mind. The bonus to Wisdom is exactly what Druids are looking for, and the +1 to Strength allows you to be a more combat-centric Druid. I highly recommend the Circle of Spores, as this is a more combat-focused Druid circle that can best benefit from a bonus to Strength. And the combat situations that you'll be getting into with your Hidden Step, you're going to have a good time. Next up is Herald of the Nature Gods. Wisdom and Strength are picture perfect for a melee cleric, and Firbolgs are well positioned to cast some holy smiting against some unholy foes. The nature domain really synergizes with the Speech of Beast and Leaf ability, as it allows you to directly talk with plants and animals that you're trying to charm. And finally, we have the Forest Warden Grappler. Monks love that +2 to Wisdom, but are more in the Dexterity camp as opposed to the Strength camp. However, the grappling-focused monk build couldn't ask for a better line of stats, and with that really cool ability that you have to drag and pick up things that are twice the normal weight, you can see how this would get fun really quick. If the idea of strolling up to an enemy and knocking them out and dragging them away despite being much larger than everyone in your party sounds really cool to you, do this build. To me, Firbolg are interesting because of their design ambiguity and are useful because of their versatility and their unique abilities. Mostly unique because they're 8 feet tall, but unique nonetheless. Any race that has the floodgates completely open in terms of your design capabilities gets a pass in my book. I absolutely love designing characters from the ground up with every minute detail at my disposal. And sometimes it's just nice to play a gentle giant as opposed to a Goliath hurt you, smash your face in kind of giant. Thank you so much for watching this video. I really appreciate it. Be sure to like and subscribe if you'd like to watch more videos like this. We release new content every single week, so definitely stay tuned for that. Be sure to leave some of your Firbolg ideas down in the comments. I'd love to read them and swap ideas with you. My name's Patrick Ferguson with Skull Splitter Dice, and I'll see you in the next one.
Thanks for joining us. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe so you never miss out.